ahead and I'll start the recording. My name is Meg Albrink, and I am the Director of First Year Experience here at Lakeland. I also play the role of Dean for Academic Support Services, and I'm on the faculty. And I'm joined on tonight's call by my colleague, David Simon. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Meg. My name is David Simon. I'm the Vice President for Campus Life. I also serve as the Dean for Students here at Lakeland University. Been with Lakeland roughly about 11 and a half years. I'm also a graduate of Lakeland, class of 99. So working for my alma mater has been quite exciting. So thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Very cool. And Elizabeth, I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself, but I know we have an admissions counselor on the line as well.
Hi, I may have worked with some of your students. I'm Elizabeth.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. So really what I'm hoping we can do tonight is just give you a brief overview of our Muskies Mondays programming, introducing you to our schedule, our philosophy, and our approach. And then also tell you a little bit about our plans for fall orientation, and definitely leave some room for questions and answers. And then as we move forward through the summer, we'll have additional sessions like this where we'll focus more on specific topics and hope to address your questions at those sessions. So let's get started. All right, so I think the most important thing that I would say is that we know that a transition to college is one that affects everyone. And often when we think about this transition, we spend a lot of time focusing on the students and what are they going to do and how is this going to affect them. But we also know that the transition affects families too, and that it's an important one that you're all going through together. So what we want to do with our Muskies Mondays philosophy approach and programming is really to give families some ideas of what's to expect, maybe some topics for conversation over the summer, and certainly some things to work on together as you prepare for the fall. I've been working at Lakeland since 1999, and so I've seen a lot of new students and their families come through our doors, which is fantastic. This fall, I'll also be sending my second child off to college. So I just went through some registration work last week. I empathize with parents who are going through this change, whether it's your first child or a later child. I have another daughter who's also in school. And so this is going to be a transition for our family too. You never figure it out completely, but all you can do is kind of work with your child and make sure that the transition goes as smoothly as possible. So in this series that of events in my own children's life, I know that there's multiple options for college parenting. Some of you may have heard of the way that sea turtles raise their children. I don't know if we have any marine biologists on the call, but typically what they do is they lay their eggs, they drop them off, and they leave. And they say, good luck, kids. Find the ocean, find the sea. We hope you have a great time. And they never really connect, and that's definitely one option. The other option for college parenting that you've probably heard of is the helicopter approach, where mom, dad, grandma, guardians are hovering right overhead, hoping to figure out everything that student needs, trying to make sure that the student has everything taken care of, maybe from a slight distance, but definitely very nearby. And something we've seen in more recent years, and maybe David can speak to this at a later point too, is that sometimes we see snowplow parents. I don't know if this is an analogy that you've heard of yourselves, but sometimes we see parents who want to push all of the obstacles out of the way for their child so that there's absolutely nothing challenging for the child to have to deal with, that the parents have taken care of all of it for them. At Lakeland, we've definitely seen these kinds of approaches to that transition, but we really recommend a slightly different model. And perhaps this one will feel familiar to you. What we recommend really is thinking about maybe when you taught your student how to ride a bike. Definitely there was some important time to kind of steady them out, get them headed in the right direction. But then soon you had to let go. It was a little scary, but they had to start pedaling. And then in some places you stood back and you cheered for them as they got going. And maybe even someone at the other end was catching them as they headed towards you in that direction. And in some ways, riding the bike for me as a parent is a helpful analogy for thinking about how to set your child up, your student up for success in college. We certainly can't pedal the bike for them. We certainly can't hold on to the bike the whole way or steady them out, but we know how to tell them what important steps to take, to have confidence, to keep pedaling. We also know how to comfort them when they fall off the bike, which is bound to happen. Every student in one way or another goes through a moment akin to falling off a bike. Maybe they are late with an assignment. Maybe they forget an important deadline, or they don't do as well as they hope to do. But if you think about the analogy of the bike, you probably, even if the child fell off the bike, I really have confidence that nobody on this call ever yelled at the bike. It wasn't the bike's fault. Chances are good you never yelled at your child either, right? It wasn't your child's fault for falling off of the bike. It really was just part of the process. And so we encourage you to think about heading off to college as definitely a process where there's going to be some error, there's going to be some mistakes, but that if we cheer the milestones and we celebrate the good stuff, we can get them all the way to the finish line. So that's our philosophy for Muskies Monday. We know that this is certainly a transition for your student, but we also know that it's a letting go transition for you as their family members too. And so what we hope to do, as I mentioned before, is to give you some tools to successfully navigate that transition. At Lakeland, we really believe that adapting to college extends well beyond succeeding in the classroom. We know that students are trying new things, and so they have to develop those new skills in multiple areas. Maybe it's a new major or a new subject area that they haven't tried before. Maybe it's a different style of learning. It could also be a new type of job, or it could be a new role on the athletic field. Either way, there's a lot of different opportunities to try to ride a new bike when they get to college. And so what we also really hope that this series and that this first year can offer them is a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose. These are important things to help a student stay on the bike, so to speak. And so these are things that we're going to be talking about this summer and things that we'll be working on in the first year. One of the things that I think is really important is that you don't usually get off to a great start when you start pedaling. And so we call that developing self-efficacy. There needs to be some room to make mistakes, maybe to ask questions and to seek help. And sometimes that's hard for high school seniors. They've just come out of being the big person on campus, right? The star of their team, the senior of their school, and now all of a sudden they're back as freshmen again. Some are challenged by that shift. Some embrace it, a chance to find something new. But we always want to assure students that really it's fine to ask for help. And in fact, Lakeland is, I don't know, almost an aggressively helpful place. If you tell us that you need something, we will do our best to help you get there, even if it's a little awkward for you to ask in the first place. So just know that it's okay not to know, and that we as a team will help you get there. So the way that we're going to approach this with our Muskies Mondays program is we're going to try to give you some information ahead of time, and then we're going to let you have some live Q&A time with our staff. So this format, where you haven't had the chance to review any of the content, will probably be one of only a couple sessions like that this summer. Typically, we'll have a new video released each week at our Orientation 2021 website. And then you can watch that video. And if you have any questions about the video, you can send it either directly to the department that's listed in the video, or you can send them to me. I'll forward them on to the department. And then 1 week later, we'll have a live Q&A with that department staff on a Monday night. So the first one that we'll have is next week. We'll have a cooperative education and career readiness session, but the video for that is already live and available to you online. So you can watch that video together with your student. Think about whether you have any questions, and then join us for the live event 1 week from tonight. At that time, our cooperative education and career readiness staff, some of whom you will have seen in the video, will be ready to answer your questions, to provide a brief overview of the presentation, just in case you were too busy to see it, and then to give you some information that'll help your student be ready for the fall. So as you encounter those different sessions, we encourage you to talk about your expectations with your family. As I said, this is a transition for your whole family. So maybe there are topics such as, how do you expect to communicate while your child is in school? What seems to be a healthy response time? Do you want to set a certain call time every week? Do you want to text? Do you want to phone? Do you want to FaceTime? What's your preferred method? Those are great conversations to start having this summer. If you haven't started talking with your family about how the college experience will be paid for, we'll set you up with some video, but then that would be a great thing for you to talk about amongst yourselves. Who's paying for what? What are you expecting each person in that group to contribute to the overall experience? How will you share information about grades, about course selections, about academic choices? One of the very tough things, and I'll speak from my own experience here, is knowing that once your child is enrolled in college, those are things that are considered their records, their information, and they do not actually have to share it with you. So if you have questions about how your child is doing, then you will want to talk about that with your child and make sure that there is some clarification at the university's end about what your child is comfortable with the university sharing with you and what they have chosen not to. I'll let my colleague David speak to that in a minute. But I think other questions, other topics that you might want to discuss, how will you handle the new freedoms of college? What are the expectations? How might your student handle situations they haven't faced before, whether they're invitations to behaviors that they maybe were protected from in high school? And then, of course, the parental one. If they have paperwork to sign, how much lead time do you need? That's always the thing that happens in my house. Mom, I need this paper signed yesterday. It's like, oh, well, a little lead time would have been helpful. So maybe talking, how do you expect to learn about the things that they need you to participate in, whether it's financial aid paperwork, tuition, billing paperwork, that kind of thing. These are all great things for you to talk about over the summer. So I'll pause there. Does anybody have any questions related to the format of our program or anything that we've shared so far? And feel free to unmute and speak if you wish, or if you're more comfortable typing something into the chat, that's fine too. All right. So David, would you mind sharing a little bit of information? I mentioned how parents can learn about the various pieces of their child's academic experience. Can you tell us a little bit about FERPA and what maybe they should be aware of in that domain?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Meg. FERPA is the Family Education Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, i.e. FERPA, is a federal law that's enacted in 1974 to protect the privacy of student education records. An eligible student is one who had actually reached the age of 18 and attends a higher education institution. Another part of that I want to share is FERPA protects the college students' education records so they remain confidential between the college and the student themselves. No matter as Muskie parents how involved you are with your child's academic life, it is now at their discretion if they want to share those records, even if you're paying tuition bills. I know that's somewhat of a shock, but this is a federal law that actually protects students. Now, what we do is we want to educate you as well as we educate the students what this looks like. We have a FERPA form. This is a document that basically you can either email myself or my colleague Meg requesting this document. We will definitely send it to you. Once your child signs this document, it allows those necessary conversations to take place. I.e., if that document is not on file, the conversation most likely you're in a call with myself or Meg, and as you have some concerns, it would go somewhat similar to this. You'll call asking that you have some concerns regarding your son or your daughter's educational track, behavior track, or some maybe student employment. It covers all those things. And I would have to check, or we would have to check to verify if that document is on file. If it's not on file, that conversation would quickly turn to a point of we cannot discuss those issues or concerns with you. You will have to discuss that with your child. That is not what you want to hear when you have a concern. And we get it. I'm a parent. I have a student in college as well. So in return, if this document's on file, it allows us to have those necessary conversations with you, bring you in a full loop of what's going on. Either it may be behavioral, it could be academic, it could be student employment, or any of those things, and allow us together put a support program to protect and then help your student, your child, our student, to flourish here. Any particular questions regarding the FERPA process?
That form is available, so as we move through various paperwork through the summer, we'll guide you to the locations of that document. It is in the admissions portal. It is in some of the other places where your student can access their schedule, access their bill, that kind of thing. But basically it kind of goes down to that important age of 18 and how at that point they become an adult and their records become theirs. And that's just different from the way things were in high school, where parents have more access to student records than they do once that student turns 18 and becomes an enrolled college student. Always a good thing to discuss with your student. It's a conversation I just had with my son last week. I put the paper in front of him. I said, please sign this so that we can all be happy in the year ahead. And it was fine. I think sometimes they like knowing that you can support them in that call without being a snowplow parent or a helicopter parent too.
Yeah, and I always joke on the side of it's easy to get that document signed a lot sooner before they actually figure out what they're signing as well. So.
All right, so the schedule ahead, I'm sorry, I flipped a little fast there, is going to give you some insight into some of the various departments that will affect student life in the first year. As I mentioned, next week we'll be having some time to speak with our co-op program and our career readiness staff. After that, we'll have representatives from Residence Life sharing information with us, as well as our campus safety folks. Middle of July, we'll start talking about student accounts and payments so that that's clear, and then also connected with that financial aid. So if you're experiencing questions about those issues, we will have staff on a call like this in mid to late July. As we turn into August, we'll start focusing more on support services and student engagement. And then, as I mentioned before, we'll try to wrap up with a faculty panel just before the term gets underway. We've sequenced these out so that you start taking care of stuff in order. I know sometimes it can be very overwhelming to imagine all of the different paperwork that needs to be signed or all of the different questions that you might have. So this allows us to kind of space things out, give you time to reflect, to build up questions you may have, and then to speak with our staff in a focused way. So you can choose how many of these you wish to attend. If you'd like to attend all of them, that's great. If you'd like to watch the recordings and you're in a time that's more convenient for you, that's fine too. We really do encourage your students to view these as well so that they know what's coming up, because as we've been talking about, so many of these processes become their responsibility as they make that transition into college. So we want them to feel really prepared and to have the chance to ask questions that they might have as well. So the next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was fall orientation. It seems hard to believe, but move-in's going to happen in about 8 weeks. For some, our fall athletes, it'll be even sooner than that. So depending on what sport the student is involved in, that move-in date could happen in early August. Or if the student is not in a sport or not in a fall sport, move-in would happen on Saturday, August 28th. And then what we'll be doing after that would be some orientation programming for all students, whether they're residential or commuters. And that will happen starting on the evening of the 28th and going through August 31st. We'll have the opportunity for them to do some socializing with our blue and gold champions, who are our peer leaders in our orientation process. We also have the opportunity for students to get out and learn a little bit more about the Sheboygan County area. And we'll also have opportunities for them to connect with faculty and staff. So we really think this is an important transitional time for students to begin getting comfortable on campus, to begin, if there's remaining paperwork that needs to be signed, taking care of some of that, and really getting mentally, emotionally ready for that first day of class. That will happen for us in the fall on September 1st. And then we'll also, that first week, also have an involvement fair. That'll be a chance for students to interact with each other, to learn about some of the various student organizations they can join while they're here, and to just generally begin fleshing out all of those dimensions of student life, academic as well as social. So any questions about the fall orientation plan? All right. So if you are interested, there are, before that, if you're interested in some live opportunities to come to campus and connect with us, we do have 2 additional accepted student days that are planned. One is July 9th and the other is July 15th. And if you have questions about those, I know Elizabeth can respond to them. Basically, what we want to do is give you a chance to take care of any of that paperwork or any of those processes that maybe it would be helpful to sit down with one of our staff members to complete. We'd also like your student to have a chance to begin meeting some of their peers, their classmates for the fall, and to just get a general sense of campus if you haven't had the chance to visit yet. We know, given that it's been a COVID year, it's just been hard to do some of that stuff. And so we want to give our students as much of an opportunity over the next 8 weeks to really get comfortable with campus life. So those 2 dates are available. And if you're interested, we encourage you to talk to your admissions counselor and sign up for one of those. I think it's like a half-day program starting morning, ending early afternoon. So think about that in your schedule. Any questions about the accepted student day? Okay. You guys are a quiet bunch. I anticipate you're waiting for the next round of Muskie Mondays so you can get all of your questions pulled together. If you can't wait till the next Muskie Monday, though, you can ask us questions on our Facebook page. We have a Lakeland University Class of 2025 Parents Facebook page. So the students have their own Facebook page. And of course, they kind of touch base there and then they migrate off to other social media platforms. But we know that it's really helpful for parents to be able to ask questions and to connect with each other. So if you are a Facebook person and you'd like to join, please go to the Lakeland University Class of 2025 Parents page and just ask to join. And then Elizabeth will confirm that you have, that you're somebody whose student is coming, so that we can keep that as a private group. But then we'll promote these events. We'll also make sure that there is other opportunities for you to ask questions that might be coming up for you between sessions. And then we also just have a variety of things that we're encouraging people to start thinking about. You know, I think most folks have been doing a good job of ticking off items in the list, but these are things that really are important for students to be taking care of in the week ahead. I mean, in the next couple of months, registering for class, sending that last high school transcript, completing financial aid processes, interviewing for co-op, completing a housing application. All of these and more are in the 2 web portals that are listed here at the bottom of the page. So if you are able to, that would be great. So I am, let's see, I'm seeing some questions in the chat. So let's see. Sorry, I just noticed this. Do they need to wait to have the FERPA signed till they're 18? No, as long as they're an enrolled student, they can sign that at any time. That's a great question. Oh, and of course, because David answered it, it's a great answer. Wait, well done, David. And then accepted, is that accepted student day that you're asking about, Carrie? If you've been to campus and you feel like you're making progress through those things, go ahead. Is that what you were asking about?
I was just curious if it's mostly for paperwork and kind of to see the campus. She's seen the campus. We have the paperwork done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're hours away. I have 2 freshmen going to school this year, so we're balancing time.
Yeah, you are. No, that's really challenging. I think if you feel like you're in good shape and you have a good sense of campus, that's fine. I think this sometimes can be a useful experience for students who may not have had the chance to visit directly or to take care of those steps. But if you're in good shape, then please enjoy the time you have together and balance your time in other ways. Other questions? Now that you're seeing the list, now that you're thinking about the countdown, any other questions coming up for folks? All right. Well, you know where we are. If you have those questions, please feel free to give us a shout. My email address is there, as is David's. And again, you can always join us on our Facebook page and pose your questions there. But we really appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll stick around for a few minutes if a question's brewing, but it just hasn't taken full shape yet. We'll be happy to stick around a little bit and see what you might have. Otherwise, if your questions are answered for the evening, thanks for coming and have a great night.
Also, Meg, before the parents start heading out, I want to explain a little bit more of a high level without getting granular, because you're going to speak to all these representatives from these several departments. Campus life consists of campus safety. We do have a campus safety department that's 24/7 that operates on campus. You'll have some conversations with that director. You'll be able to. Residence life, dining and services, campus shuttle. We do have a campus shuttle on campus that operates, that helps our students get back and forth to work, to store, anything they might need. Student activities. I'm also responsible for student leadership on campus. Health and wellness clinic. We have a physical health clinic on campus that operates with a medical assistant, a nurse practitioner, and a doctor. We have counseling, mental health services on campus as well. All these services are free of charge to your child, our students. I'm also part of the COVID response team, as I'm a liaison for the university to Sheboygan County Public Health, and also over some of our major student organizations such as Student Government Association, Greek Affairs, and Multicultural Affairs. So as you speak with various directors of these departments, if you have any other questions, please, again, use my email or Meg, facilitate those questions to us, and we'll definitely make sure we answer them for you if you have any.
We do have one question showing up in the chat, David, and it's when should we expect to hear about housing for the fall?
Great question. Right now, we're working with athletics. If your student is a student athlete, we're working right now to lock in those early move-in days for fall sports. But that communication should actually come out sometime after July. I want to say definitely before the first week of August. All the communication will start coming out, either be through their email address that they have registered with us or their Lakeland email address.
Great, thanks for that. Sorry I didn't give you a chance to explain those different areas, David. I just got all keyed up and I wanted to jump in.
Oh, no worries.
Any other questions for David, for me, for Elizabeth?
Look like this one's for you, Meg.
Oh, what type of laptop or Chromebook is best? Are there suggestions? Well, I think, I know a lot of students are having the opportunity now to maybe purchase their Chromebook after having used it in high school. I think it can work fine, although I do think that maybe something a little bit more robust would be helpful for your student. And I only say that because I think sometimes the Chromebooks that they've used through high school might have some limiting features on them. They might be a little more beat up from having wandered around in backpacks for the last few years. So we don't really need students to have a super high end computer. And in fact, we have a lot of computer labs on campus where students can, if they don't have a device, can use a full suite of products. But if your student likes to have their own device, I think a fairly standard laptop is fine. I know some students who work in our graphic design program prefer something a little more high end because of the nature of their program. But we still, in that case too, we have a fully renovated graphic design lab with Mac computers that your student would be able to use for their courses. And I know that some of those computer labs are open 24/7. So there should never be an issue of a student not being able to get to a computer to complete their coursework. One other thing that I would want to make sure that you knew is that the student will have access to a full complement of Microsoft Office technology with their student identification. So we use Office 365. Through that, students can download also Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those standard softwares that are so useful for them in college. So if you're trying to figure out whether to buy something and you're trying to figure out whether to buy the software, know that that is a free download for your student through Lakeland's portal. Will a newer Chromebook be okay? If she's used to a Chromebook and she likes it, then I certainly think that that's fine. I do know that most of our technology, because it's really syncing mostly with Microsoft products, sometimes the Google platform, so all the classes will be, the classes won't be in Google Classroom, which is sometimes what high schools are using. And so the migration from a Google stored document to a Microsoft stored document might be an issue. But I would encourage her, if she's ever saving documents, to save them as PDFs first so that they can jump through that cyberspace link a little bit more securely and not kind of disappear. I think for creative writing, certainly anything that has Word, right? That's the big thing. Any word processing document is going to be key for creative writing. The Microsoft
Yeah,
download.
and she's used to using,
Oh, what's that?
I'm sorry, she's used to using Google. She prefers that. She hates Word. I don't know. I grew up with Word, so I kind of feel the opposite. And I just want to make sure, my one daughter actually has a Chromebook
Mhm.
that she can't use because she's going into illustration and she needs something way, way more powerful than a Chromebook. And so we're hoping there might be a little buyout switch
Yeah,
that can happen. So if she could use a Chromebook, I think she'd be happier. I just want to make sure she's not going to be struggling because of turning in her assignments being difficult. But if she knows what to do, she'd be able to do it. I just want to make sure that
yeah.
you said saving as a PDF should save her.
I think as long as she's saving as a PDF, that clearly migrates across platforms. And, when we have students who are working in the Mac Pages software and students who are working in the Google software, as long as they save to a PDF, that is the best thing for the assignments that they'll need to upload, for sure.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and if you're able to get into My.Lakeland, I see a question from Susanna about the Microsoft download. You should be able to get to it. Once you have your Lakeland ID, and I was just wondering if I could pull it up. There's a section there for downloading the Microsoft Office suite. And if you're operating in there because you're checking your schedule or you're checking your bill or your student accounts, it's in My.Lakeland. And I'm just trying to pull it up here. Let's see. I might need to get back to you on that. Typically, so the way that most of our accounts work is that in Office 365, you have access to all of those. I was just seeing if I could see where the download information was, but I'm unable to find it right now. We'll make sure that we include that information in a later meeting. Okay, Susanna, thank you for asking that. Any other questions?
Somebody asked in there, I think they direct messaged me, asking when we'll find out roommates.
David, do you want to take that one?
Yes, absolutely. When the communication goes out for as the all the incoming freshmen and they're paired up, all that information will go out, and then also it'll be information where the students can actually link up who will become roommates in advance. So I want to say again, that's going to be around that last week of July, early week of August.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks again for joining us this evening. It's nice to start meeting some folks who are going to be part of the Lakeland family this fall. We hope that you'll stay in touch, and if you'd like to hang out, we'll still be here for a little bit. But if you have what you need for the evening, we wish you well, and we hope to see you next week. Oh, I do see a question from Jenna. When's the first tuition payment for the fall, and when can I sign up for payment plans? David, do you have the answer to that by any chance?
I don't offhand. That'd be a good question. We can have the registrar, the business office reach out and finance. Absolutely.
And
So
Elizabeth, do you have that one? Awesome.
Yeah, so the
Okay, there she
15th
go.
of August is the first tuition due date. It's the 15th before every term, basically, that you'll have tuition due. And you can set up a payment plan anytime. You can do it virtually through My.Lakeland, or you can call the business office to start setting it up as well. However, if you are still waiting for some scholarships to come through or any other funding, I would hold off until you have your final balance before setting up the payment plan. However, if new payments do come in later on, if you already have a payment plan set up, the payments will adjust and be divided up equally among the rest of your payments with the amount that you had paid subtracted, if that makes sense.
So what I put up on the screen, I hope folks can see it. This is the student account portal in My.Lakeland. So once you log into My.Lakeland using your username and password, you can go right to student, which is this tab. I have some other ones here that are relevant to my role, but then go to student accounts. And that will give you all of this information about the payment plans as Elizabeth described. The payment in full will be due by August 15th, but the other option is to set up the payment plan by that same date. And then you can have that payment apportioned across those dates throughout the fall term. So that's where you can find some of that information and some of the contacts to moving forward. So I hope that answers your question, Jenna. That was a good one. I'm sure other people had it too. And this is where I think you can find the download as well for the software, but I'm not usually in those areas, so I'm not finding it as easily, but we'll get that for you for sure. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We hope to see you next week. Take care.